Whether you're in North or South Carolina or anywhere else in the world, enter the Cat Cave with Michael Davis and Shane Smith to listen to your favorite Carolina Panthers podcast, a part of the Keep Pound Podcast Network and Fans First Sports Network. Same place that brings you Believe in Panthers, Embrace Debate, Inside the Vault can all be found on Fans First Sports Network and the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel that is sponsored by DraftKings. The wait is over. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of NASCAR, is now live in North Carolina. Now you can legally bet on all your favorite sports anytime, anywhere, right here in North Carolina with DraftKings. For a limited time, new customers who sign up with promo code Tobacco Road and bet $5 will receive $250 instantly in bonus bets. DraftKings has the best features, including same-game parlays, player props, and more fast and easy payouts right at your fingertips. For the race this Sunday, you can bet on who wins. You can bet who places top 3, top 5, however you're feeling. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now using code Tobacco Road and bet $5 to get $250 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Tobacco Road. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethangame.nc.gov. 21 plus, North Carolina only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook/NC. NASCAR is not sponsored this promotion and used under license. And you guys can tell that we are missing one of our guys. We are missing Ryan Frick. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday. His birthday was yesterday, Tuesday of this week. So if you didn't get a chance and you're watching now, shoot him a quick happy birthday text, happy birthday message on our social medias that you can find. His social medias are tap outs and touchdowns pretty much. He has his own wrestling football podcast. We will also accept birthday wishes to the Cat Cave socials that you can find at the Cat Cave _FFSN. But Shannon, we have a pretty good show today. We are in a weird stage because we're like leaving free agency and we're about to get into the draft. There's a lot of pro days going on. But I wanted to look at this depth chart because there's been a lot of moves for the Carolina Panthers in this new Dave Canales era with Dan Morgan. So following the free agency, where do you think, first we'll start with the strengths. Like, what do you really think are the strengths of this Carolina Panthers team headed into the draft next month?
Got to be the linebacking core, which is Josie Jewell, Sean Robinson, those guys being added on, DJ Worley being added on. This linebacking core has got a new look. They are wanting to get after the quarterback, get all 11 guys to the football, which is a very big move and very good as a part of Idro Evero's defense. That to me has been a big thing. The interior guard play of the offensive line has been a strength as well too. So I'm looking at both of those things because Carolina's defense has been a good defense, just unfortunately not as good as many people have seen it because of the lack of play on the offense. And once again, Panther fans have been screaming for help on the line. They're getting help on the line right now with 2 interior guards. So I got to give an A+ to those 2 spots there for Carolina.
And I have to agree with you, Shannon. Like, that offensive line last year was tough. And I
Yes.
mean tough.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't expect anyone to step in there, let alone a rookie quarterback in Bryce Young. I mean, CJ Stroud would have struggled behind that O line. We say on the show before. I think Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is, would struggle behind that O line. And the Chiefs don't even have that good of an offensive line.
Of course.
So I really am pleased with the depth they have at the offensive line. Right now, it's looking like Akeem Aquanu, Damian Lewis, Austin Corbett, Robert Hunt, and Taylor Moton would be the starting offensive line. But I also want to look at, man, that receiving core. I really like the receiving core that they've put together right now, especially after trading for Deontay Johnson and having Jonathan Mingo in his second year, having Adam Thielen there to continue to help coach him. Those are some big acquisitions and some good depth that you can't overlook. Like, everybody trashes the depth at receiver, but Come on, man. Like, give them some slack.
Yeah, I mean, from what we had last year, absolutely. And if they draft effectively, it's gonna get better with the draft, especially with the receiver heavy draft that we're gonna be having this year. So it's gonna get better, I believe.
Yeah, and so when we talk about the strengths, there's also weaknesses. This isn't a complete team. They are in a rebuild, and we have noticed that on the podcast the last few weeks. If you listen to Believe in Panthers, they're also recognizing this is a full rebuild. When you trade Brian Burns away, like they did, when you gave Christian McCaffrey away a couple years ago, when you gave DJ Moore away last year to go get Bryce Young, when you let Frankie Louvu walk to the Washington Commanders, like you understand, recognize this is a rebuild year.
Hmm.
So where are you seeing some holes on this depth chart for the Carolina Panthers?
There's two spots again for this. One, the obvious one has got to be the defensive backfield. The lockdown corners, because you're playing in a division that loves to pass the football. You've got Tampa Bay, who has probably the best receiver in the NFC South, has to be Mike Evans, hands down. Mike Evans has been year in and year out the best receiver in the NFC South. He's played incredible football. It looks like Baker Mayfield has some confidence in Tampa Bay. And also, we don't know what we're going to get out of New Orleans Saints, not yet. But Atlanta's got Kirk Cousin now as their quarterback. So there's going to be a lot of passing the football this year. I beg to differ with Atlanta because Bijan Robinson's back there, but he does a little bit of everything in the backfield when it comes to receiving and running the football. So it's got to be the corners. They need another compliment to J.C. Horn because it looks like J.C. Horn is going to be starting. What's up there, Ryan Frick, the homer? And so I think they've got to find a compliment to him. The second thing is the kick return. Now, with the new rules that the NFL is putting in with the kick return, I think it would be obvious that one of the best things that you need is field position. And that's something that Carolina has not gotten from their return game. And I think that a kick returner would be something else as well, too, that they could get in order to establish field position.
And I do like Raheem Blackshear as a returner. I think ISM is potentially a returner as well if he stays on
Yeah,
the roster. It looks
yeah,
like they're keeping him. I think he signed a 1-year deal with the team
yeah.
potentially, if I remember correctly. Ah, and Shannon, you touched on the secondary. This is I hate to dog on this, but your secondary is J.C. Horn. And yeah, he's starting because the rest of the secondary, especially at corner, is almost non-existent.
Pretty
Dane
much.
Jackson, Troy Hill, Deshaun Jameson, DiCaprio Boodle, AJ Park. Like we are going into like, okay, who is this guy? Will this guy even make the 53-man roster? I mean, there needs to be something right here, especially when you're thinking about playing a Cousins or playing Derek Carr, playing a resurgence in Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans.
And this draft is defensive back heavy as well too. So there's a lot of DBs in the draft, and some of those DBs are looking really, really mean, looking really, really good. You got some good players that could be potential number ones, number twos as defensive backs. So this is something that Carolina's got to take under consideration, especially with the picks being early in the second round.
Yeah, and that's what stinks is like they gave away that first round pick, which you never know when you give up a first round pick, like where that team's going to draft. You
Definitely.
gave up a number one overall pick. So it was like
Mhm.
a number one overall for a number one overall and then some. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but they did acquire a second round pick in the Brian Burns trade from the New York Giants. That will help them. They have 2 picks in the top 40. So that is interesting. I will say I will be giving a mock draft for the Carolina Panthers a little later on in this episode. We're actually splitting up the week, so this is my week, and then next week I believe it's Shannon's week to do a mock draft, and then the following week is Ryan Frick, and that's what you get for missing on your birthday week. We go ahead and push you off to the very end.
Let's
But
hope he doesn't forget, because he's an old man now. So let's hope he doesn't forget.
yeah, we'll have to send him text reminders pretty frequently that hey, you do your mock draft here in a couple weeks. Hey, you do your mock draft next week. Hey, you do your mock draft in 3 days, 2 days, tomorrow. Hey, you're supposed to share your mock draft in the next 5 minutes. You ready to go on the cat cave? Dude, I'd be shocked if he doesn't block my number by the end of it. But
Out if you need me to, I'll help you out.
I appreciate it. I thank you. Thank you. Much love for Ryan. But yeah, we still have about a month until the draft. And I'll be sharing my mock draft here in a second. But free agents, they're still out there. Um, maybe the name of a Michael Gallup hasn't re-signed yet.
Yeah.
Maybe the name of a Jadeveon Clowney hasn't found a home yet. Are there any guys that you're seeing in free agency to where it's like, hey, I'd rather pick them up in free agency and fill that hole on the depth chart with a veteran rather than relying on the draft?
I hate to do a reiteration of last week, but I think that you got to go with Clowney. I think you got to get him. If Clowney considers it and they have an offer on the table and he takes it, you got to get that guy, because the team needs defense. We need pass rushers. Carolina needs to get to the quarterback. These guys are having a field day on our defensive backfield because we can't get guys to the football at the quarterback position. So we have to go for a pass rusher. We have to get a good edge rusher. Maybe in the draft we'll get some young bloods in there. But Clowney's got to be the guy that you got to go and get. I think that they can't go wrong with him regardless. I know you don't like it, and I know Ryan Frick is smiling if he's watching the show, but you got to go with Clowney. I say you got to go get that guy, man. Go get him.
So to be fair, and I've had people reach out to me after the end of last week's Cat Cave with Ryan. I wouldn't hate, just to be clear, I wouldn't hate Jadeveon Clowney on the Panthers. Why not? You just sent Brian Burns to the Giants. You need somebody to help Derek Brown, because Derek Brown, if he's getting triple team, then all of a sudden he's ineffective. So you
Exactly.
need guys on the defensive line that offensive have to worry about and they have to game plan for. Jadeveon Clowney might be that piece. Who knows? Ryan's such a homer guy. He wouldn't let me live it down. It's crazy too.
And I get it, and I get why you don't want him. I get it, because Clowney might not have always had the best attitude, and there have been some reputations of him taking plays off. I get it. I do understand that. You don't need that in your locker room, especially with the new look squad and a bunch of young guys. You don't need that bad influence. You don't need that locker room to be turned against your coach, or the defense to just turn their back to the scheme and be a free for all. I get that, but I got to look at it and say, with the loss of Frankie Louvu, with the fact that Derek Brown could be getting double to triple team at that interior tackle role on the defense, I think it would help having somebody who's going to put a little bit more pressure on these quarterbacks, especially inside of the NFC South, because it's pass heavy. You don't have the rushers like we have like they're all over the place. It's been the year of the running back in free agency, with Saquon Barkley going to Philadelphia. These guys are actually starting to get paid, and I think they've been paying attention to the old episodes of Out of Pocket when we were talking about that during the summer, because these guys didn't get paid worth anything, and these quarterbacks are getting paid a lot of money. So I think that it's fair to say that the passing game is going to reign supreme in the NFC South. You don't have that maybe 1,200-yard rusher, but we don't know what we're going to get out of Bijan Robinson this year. We don't know what we're going to get out of Chuba Hubbard this year. We don't know what we're going to get out of him, and he's been doing a great job on our running game. He's been the only consistent runner, and you got to put a line around him. So we don't know what we're going to get.
And it's interesting, I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite right here, but one name that the Panthers could look at in signing free agency is Stephon Gilmore. Ironically, former Gamecock, but Dallas has not re-signed Gilmore yet. We don't know what Dallas's budget is in terms of signing free agents. The Cowboys have Trayvon Diggs. They have Deron Bland. They just re-signed Jordan Lewis. So could Gilmore end up back in Dallas, but the Panthers apparently have interest in re-signing Gilmore. And when Diggs went down last year, Gilmore stepped up big time. Everybody's attention was on Deron Bland because of the interceptions, but Stephon Gilmore can still lock down
Yeah,
one half of the field. And
absolutely.
so, especially when you look at what the NFC South could do to these corners, not relying on J.C. Horn to be healthy, bring in a Gilmore if you
Hmm.
can afford him.
Hmm.
Bring in a Kello Witherspoon from the Rams. Witherspoon had 14 passes defended, 52 tackles, and 3 interceptions last year.
Hmm.
Um, Safety, I think you could be okay with Woods and Fuller, but Quandre Diggs is still out there.
Yeah,
Justin Simmons is still out there.
which
How
was very, very weird to see that. I mean, the man was all pro, and then all of a sudden, it's like he goes. I don't know what's going on with Denver. I have no idea. I
uh,
don't know.
Denver's like, hey, we'll pay a quarterback, 39 million not to play for us. But that's neither here nor there. I've talked a lot about that on Out of Pocket. But
Same.
we do have the mock draft that I advertised throughout the entire show. So how this will work is there's a mock draft database simulator that I went through earlier preparing for the show, and I will now share my picks with you guys on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and Fans First Sports Network. And after I share these picks, I will display them on the screen as well. Uh, Obviously, with the rules with this is we're not doing any trades. We're not doing any trades. We're picking exactly where the Panthers are picking. And what I have the Panthers picking in their first pick at number 33 is I want to see them continue with this offensive lineman growth. I have Graham Barton staying in state. He played as an interior offensive lineman for Duke. And this guy can play any position. He can play center like he did his freshman year. He can play guard. He can swing out to tackle. So having a Graham Barton on your team is very useful, especially when you're like, okay, we just signed 2 big guards, Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. You don't know how Akeem Ekwonu is going to do or Taylor Moton. The center position is in shambles right now after Bradley Bozeman left this free agency. So Graham Barton, you can plug and play him anywhere. At 39, they drafted a receiver last year, Jonathan Mingo. I think they draft another receiver. This is where Ryan would want me to pick Xavier Legette. I opt not to, and I opt to draft somebody who had a very impressive year out in the Pac-12's final year. I got Troy Franklin, the receiver from Oregon, going 39, especially with Adam Thielen getting older. You can have both Franklin and Mingo be mentored by Thielen. We go in the 3rd round, and I want to continue building this offense. This has been the focus. Let some defensive money walk, build up your offense so Bryce Young can really flourish and you see what he's all about. And so in the 3rd round, I got a tight end after Hayden Hurst leaves the Panthers. I got tight end Jatavian Sanders from Texas, 3rd round. I think giving him a reliable 3rd down target, a reliable red zone target, Jadavian Sanders is my pick in the 3rd round. In the 4th round, Miles Sanders got that big contract last year, didn't do too much. Chuba Hubbard might be in the mix. Raheem Blackshear on the returns. I'm taking a running back in the 4th round. I'm taking Jalen Wright over next state over Tennessee. I got Jalen Wright coming from Tennessee. And then I haven't taken a defensive player this entire draft up until now, up until the 5th round, 150, 141 overall. And we were talking about the depth at corner. I think they do sign a free agent corner here in the next couple weeks. But give me Kalen King from Penn State to help shore up that secondary. And now I'm going very next pick, 141 to 142. We got Muhammad Kamara, the edge rusher from Colorado State. The Panthers are going to probably be working on a base 3-4 defense. So you need edge rushers to where he can stand up and play from a 2-point stance. I think that's Kamara from Colorado State. And then my last pick, 240, get a linebacker. I have great hopes on Josie Jewell, but go get a linebacker. JT Bertrand from Notre Dame. Shen, what'd you think?
Okay, now I do like the fact that you went receiver heavy in this draft. I do like the fact that you went receiver heavy. Now, one thing I do want to say is that the obvious guy that everybody wants Carolina to get has got to be Keon Coleman out of Florida State. That's who Skylar Callahan, shout out to him from Believing Panthers, put in his Sports Illustrated article that he put out, I believe, 2 days ago. And Keon Coleman is the front runner to get that 33 pick. But in my heart of hearts, I feel like he might be taken at the butt end of the first round because all ACC receiver. Um, but that's where I kind of looked at it. Where you got the guy from Oregon, I like that pick, I really do. But I think it was really good that they started with the line because they do need the help at center. Because with Bozeman going, they need a center, they need a backup center. I think they may pick up a backup center sometime later on in free agency before the season begins. But why not get a young guy that you can use in between? Because that interior, once again, the interior line is what got Carolina the most this year. I was a little skeptical that the defense was taking on the back end, but I can live with that because, especially with Josie Jewell, DJ Worley, those guys being picked up in free agency, I think that's a good idea to let the free agents get their play and get their feel and just fill in what you need later on in the draft. And the edge rusher, once again, getting an edge rusher is another thing because they're changing around because their defense is still that base 4-3 and having someone play from that 2-point stance. Because once again, Carolina's got to get to the quarterback. They've got to get to the quarterback because dead last in sacks is not going to help you none, especially with a defensive backfield that has not been proven. So I do like the fact that the defense was taken on the back end and the offense was looked at on the front end. Once again, you look at these teams that have won the Super Bowl. You look at Kansas City. Kansas City built from the draft. We were talking about that the past 2 episodes. The draft has been the build. Free agency's cool and all. It's good getting those guys from free agency. It's good. You need those spots for free agency. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to build a dynasty, if you're trying to be a mainstay in the conference, if you're trying to be a mainstay in your division, it's got to be the draft where you build. So I like the focus of offense first over defense.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Panthers told us this year with free agency, like letting Louvu go, letting Burns go, letting Dante Jackson, who they were going to cut, and then they ended up trading him in the Deontay Johnson deal. I think that is what they're telling us because they need to figure out if they're really sold on Bryce Young. Now, I'm sold on Bryce Young. I think he just didn't have the tools around him. Now you put the tools around him. That's the major thing because look 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Kenny Pickett was the first quarterback taken. He's traded to Philadelphia. There was another quarterback who was taken, Desmond Ridder.
Yep.
Now he's not on his original team. He's in Arizona now.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are moving off these quarterbacks just because there's better prospects coming out each and every year. They're more developed. They have more to work with medically and with tape and with workouts and physical training. And some of them are staying in school longer because they can get NIL deals. Yeah, exactly. So that's why the Panthers really need to go all in, be like, hey, no excuses. You have an offensive line. You have one of the brightest head coaches, especially with the work he did with Geno, the work he did with Baker. Okay, now you got it. You have a number one in Adam Thielen. You got Deontay Johnson. You go get a wide receiver. It just, you need to make sure, like, okay, like we have something to build off of with Bryce Young this year, or as much as people don't want to think about the possibility of looking elsewhere at quarterback here in the next 2 or 3 years. Like you gotta think that way, especially in this business. And you mentioned Keon Coleman. There's a reason I took Troy Franklin over Keon Coleman when I had the opportunity. And that's because Keon Coleman had a down year last year. Okay,
Under-
people are talking about Keon Coleman. You know, he's 6'3", 4'6", 40. You know, he's a red zone weapon. Whatever. He had 19 touchdowns in his career. Troy Franklin had 25. People don't love that Troy Franklin has like a smaller build, even though he's 6'2". But man, I really do like Troy Franklin. He does need a little bit of help with route running. He needs a little help with drops, but especially with the class that we have this year and how deep the receiver class is, I think Troy would go round 1 if not for the depth at this receiver class.
But you also got to look at as well too, and address what you were bringing up as well too. One thing that we have to look at is that Bryce Young has not really had a lot of room to grow. Most of his coaches were gone before the end of the season, and then the offense had no consistency. Dave Canales is coming in here and he is talking. Now, I want to see what he's got for the season. I'm pretty sure, but my man is going out there and he is talking, and a lot of people are liking what he's doing. And look at the work that he's had. His work with Baker Mayfield, his work with Geno Smith. Most of these guys were looking at these guys as lost causes, especially Geno Smith. So the fact that Geno Smith actually played himself into 3 more years and a full contract in Seattle, and then once again doing the same thing with Baker Mayfield, getting Baker Mayfield once again another contract and getting him a chance to have a new beginning with Tampa Bay. It works out really, really good. It shows the work that Dave Canales is putting in. Now I want to see what these guys do without him the next year or two to go with, because we don't know, because so far we've seen Geno not do so well last year without him, and then Baker Mayfield has done well. Now it's proven time yet again for Baker Mayfield. And to add on to what you're talking about here with Keon Coleman, look at what the world they're doing with the first overall pick. They're basing them off of a year before. This year was not a good year for Caleb Williams. But yet and still, they're still looking at him as the quarterback that's going to be taken first in the draft. Now, mind you, I understand that. He's played very, very well. No disrespect, nothing being taken away from Caleb Williams. But if you're going to be fair about one guy, got to be fair about the other. Keon Coleman had a down year last year, but also, once again, he lost his quarterback at the tail end of the year. And they opted not to go for their bowl game, and who knows what could have happened in that game with him if they would have went for their bowl game. I mean, Keon Coleman has got the build for a number 1 receiver. Troy Franklin may not. But yet and still, one thing that Carolina does need is speed. They need speed at the receiver spot. They need speed. And so they've not had a lot of speed, and that's no disrespect to Adam Thielen, but it's just the fact of the way that the offense was being ran. You don't expect for Adam Thielen, 35 years of age, to be the speedy guy. You want to see that in a younger player. We want to see that in Mingo. We want to see that in DJ Chark. We didn't get a lot of that, but in the draft you can find that. And with this draft being so heavy in receivers, yeah, I mean, I don't see the Panthers having a bad pick at receiver outside of these two. I do not.
And be hard to miss on the
Yes.
receivers, especially with how deep this class is. And I'm assuming that when we're running out of these contracts in 4 to 5 years, these receivers are probably going to set a new market with the receiving contracts that they get. But we're out of time in the Cat Cave. I want you guys to go follow Shan Smith on Twitter at podcast_Smitty. He does great work. He was on Drop the Mic today with me, talking wrestling with Mike Mealy from the Mouth Off the Mike Wrestling Podcast. You guys can go find that. You can go follow me on all my socials, Facebook, Insta. Those are my 2 radio and podcast handles, and then Twitter at B_Michael Davis, but also the Cat Cave socials at the Cat Cave _FFSN. And next week, you guys already heard my mock. Now is your chance to hear Shannon's mock next week. But until then, exit the Cat Cave and listen to more content by myself and Shannon on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel and more Carolina Central podcasts on the Keep Pound Podcast Network, powered by the Fans First Sports Network. We will see you guys next week.